Welcome to the live stream here where it's breaking news. I can speak for myself here before we get to my co-partner here, Harrison. I was drinking coffee on my couch, man, when we got this update. Did not expect on Sunday morning, the last day of June for Texas A&M, to announce former hitting coach Michael Earley is the new man, Trev Albert's first hire in College Station. Harrison, how we doing on this Sunday morning? I'm sure this took you, just the timing of it, a little bit of surprise as well.
Yeah, Dave, it did take me a little bit for surprise. I mean, I woke up and saw David Lucci on my phone breaking news about this, and I was like, oh, here we go. It's interesting timing for sure. This feels like, they normally do this like a Monday morning, like 8 a.m. That's why I thought it was kind of odd doing a Sunday morning, unless it was, more so a June than July thing. But, I mean, I think Aggie fans all over are just glad to have a head coach at this point. It's dragged on a little bit longer than it kind of expected, just with the prestige and program that A&M is. But, they got a new head coach, and, they're looking forward to 2025.
So just reviewing Early's kind of bio here, just for the people that don't know. So he's been at Texas A&M as the hitting coach under Jim Schlossnagle, as we all know, has made his way over to Austin. I was under the impression Early was going with him to Austin if this didn't work out. So he put on the burnt orange for half a second. Now he's got to put back on the maroon and white. But he's been the hitting coach since 2022. Before that, from 2017 to 21, he was the assistant coach at Arizona State with the Sun Devils. From 10 to 15, he played in the pros as an all Big Ten third-team guy drafted by the Chicago White Sox. So younger guy will be able to relate to some guys. It looks like he's probably in his mid-30s by his date of birth. But, Harrison, go into on some details about Michael Earley. You talked a little bit off air. You think the players like this hire?
Yeah, absolutely. Everything I'm seeing so far, and leading up through this head coaching search, a lot of current players were outspoken about hire Michael Earley, and talking about that, and just a lot of support behind him. And it seems like so far, everything I've seen on through connections I have and seen on social media, that players, current and former, are ecstatic about this and in support of him for sure.
Yeah, it's always interesting to see how that goes. Again, has no head coaching experience. Again, I have a major football background, so I feel like sometimes that can be interesting if you haven't been a head coach for baseball. I would assume it's probably a little easier, not discrediting the sport. I'm saying probably a little easier. I'll be interested to see how that transition overall is. Harrison, we're talking a little bit. What's your initial thoughts on that? Are you like, I like it, or you kind of like, they could have went and maybe got somebody else? What's the kind of initial reaction feel to this hire?
Yeah, Dave. I mean, honestly, both things. I mean, I like it because a lot of the players like Early. A lot of them love how. I mean, you could say he's a hitting guru. I mean, he's worked with guys like Spencer Torkelson, who have said, I would not be here today where I am without Coach Early. He's the definition of a winner. He's a hard worker and dedicated to the game of baseball contagiously. I mean, to have a guy like Spencer Torkelson, who went number 1 overall in 2020 out of Arizona State, say that, I mean, is unbelievable. And you have he was there. He was a big part of Jay Slavelet's breakout year as a freshman. Now he's a big part of Gavin RHOBACK's breakout year as a freshman. I mean, he's a hitting guru. I mean, yes, he doesn't have the head coaching experience, but he's been assistant coach under some great head coaches. Like, say what you want about the whole situation with Jim Schlossnagle, Dave, and others, but he's a phenomenal head coach at the end of the day. He is a winner and a phenomenal head coach. So to not have the experience of a head coach in him, he knows, he's been in Aggie land. He knows the expectation. He knows the people. He knows the character. He knows the pedigree, the development, the expectation, everyone. He knows everything, and he's in a position to be very successful as a first-time head coach. It's just, my question is, Dave, who is it going to be his staff around him?
Yeah, because you're assuming Max Weiner is going to stay. He's going to be with Schlossnagle.
It's one of those things, like, you bring in, like, when Schloss went to Texas, usually a lot of times people bring their staff, if not part of it, with them to the next place. But as a first-time head coach, like, who's going to be your staff going to be? That's a big question for me, and I think you have to get the key staff around you. It's not just the head coach; it's the staff around you. You have to get a really good recruiting coordinator. Nolan Cain is a phenomenal recruiting coordinator. He's phenomenal at grabbing guys out of the portal, what guys to look at and fit into their metrics and mold. And he's now at Texas. Max Weiner, I said best pitching coach in the country right now. He's now at Texas. And Michael Earley, I mean, he's a hitting guru, like I said. He's going to have a lot of hands-on in the hitting aspect, but you still need a hitting coach underneath you as well, I think. And so that rest of that staff build-out and development is going to be really crucial to see how great of a hire this is looking back on it, as opposed to just looking forward right now.
Why do you think we ultimately, or why do you think Trev Alberts, I shouldn't say we, why do you think Trev Alberts ultimately, if you had to guess, obviously you're not in the interviews, I'm not in the interviews, settled on this? Why not? I feel like we've talked in our SEC Unfiltered group, Harrison, before. Why not go after a guy that's proven in the league? He went like Nick Mingion. Why do you think he didn't get a call? Or do you like, I don't know. I just thought I'd present that question to you. I feel like that's a fair question. That's who I would have hired right when I saw Schlossnagle was leaving Texas. I'm sure there's some stuff in between there. But I just interested, why doesn't he get contacted or anything?
Yeah, which is really interesting. I mean, from what I've seen, and I never heard that he interviewed Nick Mingion. And it
I never saw that
one side or the other. It could have just been, I mean, Nick Mingion, what he did at a program like Kentucky, you have to think what he could have done on a large scale at Texas A&M.
Yeah.
Could have been massive, right? But maybe it's just he was so plugged in and liked Kentucky that he didn't want to leave. And I mean, Brian O'Connor kind of entertained it, but stayed at UVA. I think he had a contract extension that he restructured previously, but decided to stay. I mean, we saw Tom Walters at Wake Forest. He interviewed and everything. And I don't know which side, kind of determined if Walters' camp kind of backed out or whatnot, or they couldn't meet on terms or whatnot. Was it money or whatever it was? He decides to stay. I mean, it felt like a weird situation, David, when it was like, well, who do they, I don't want to say poach, but like, who do they go after? Like head coach in the SEC, ACC, or whatnot. But I mean, we saw Skip Johnson from Oklahoma interview and be in a discussion. It felt like later, not so earlier in that kind of process. And we saw Michael Earley was kind of plugged into this. And I sent it to our group chat about how Earley never changed any of his bio or posted anything in regards to Texas, like being, going with the staff there. So it was like
he was kind of sitting on G, waiting on O, it felt like.
Yeah. I mean, there's that. And then you have, who was the other one? I can't remember. Oh, well, I thought Dave Heifer from DBU. Dallas He was in the running, I think, for a good bit. I thought he would have been a very, very good hire. From my sources, everything, he was kind of the lead candidate early on and would have had a very, very good shot. But I think he was comfortable in Dallas Baptist. He got, I think, one or two kids that goes to DBU, very plugged into the faith there, and just he has a lot of control, I think, over there as well. So different expectations and standard. I mean, it's the only Division I program at DBU. So like that, he has a lot of pull with that. I don't want to say it's not a sought after job, but it's not an easy job. I mean, Aggieland is hungry. Hungry. And 12th man is huge. The money behind everything. I mean, so it's a very, very hard job. It's not going to be easy, but a guy like Michael Earley, who's been in the program, been around the facilities, obviously the players, the AD, everything, knows expectation and standard, feels like he can deliver up to that standard. But to answer kind of full circle your question, Billy Lucci talked about how he very, very much so impressed AD Trev Alberts in interviews. Like he blew him away, it seemed like. So I don't know I haven't heard anything of what he blew him away with, whether it was like, hey, like, how would you lead this program? Or like, what does leadership in a high coaching role here? I don't know what part of the interview blew him away. I'm curious to see if I can find that out. But I mean, if you've blown away an AD at an SEC school like that. I mean, yes, Trev Alberts is a newer AD, but to do that, I mean, I think that should say a lot.
No, 100%. Yeah, it kind of just feels like, I mean, A&M, you would think it would get a decent amount of these. I'd say at least 75% of these guys back from the portal now. So it feels like you're setting yourself up to be, once again, pretty good next year. Like, because it looks like he's going to get everybody back. The year after that, though, is it almost like a hire that you're like, we saved our 25 season, but I don't know how it's going to be long term, or is it just a little too early to say? I mean, even me asking that question, I feel like it's a little too early to say. I think you're fine. You set yourself up to be good next year. Because let's be honest, Harrison, if they went and hired potentially Nick Mingion, let's just say that, they probably don't keep a lot of those guys, and A&M they're behind the 8 ball in the portal, could not be a very good squad next year. Next year, now you're hiring Early, you probably set yourself up to be pretty good, but you mentioned it. Some guys may not really be interested in that job because, like you said, it's not a team. It's like, hey, they had success 20 years ago, but they hadn't had any in a while, and it's just a thirsty fan base. I mean, dude, they're coming off one game away from winning it all. So it isn't like some fan base that's like, we'll give you a couple years to get settled in, but then we expect to get rock and rolling. I mean, it's once fall ball rolls out there, boys, we should be rocking and rolling. Like we were one win away from winning it all last year.
Yeah, and so like you said,
go ahead.
Like you said, with the recruiting aspect, I mean, the portal closes really soon, and it's like from when I talked to some certain coaches in Omaha, they said whenever we've been in Omaha recently, we've done all right in the portal. Whenever we haven't been in Omaha, we've crushed the portal. So, I mean, I think that definitely plays into it. And I'm surprised it took this long for A&M just because of that aspect of keeping guys, the portal, how everything's, just the unknowns of things. That's why I think a lot of programs move faster. And the other names I remember that were in the discussion and runnings for the head coaching, I don't know how deep it got, but there were two big names in MLB that were said to be in the conversation for the head coaching position. I don't know if they officially interviewed or not. I don't know the official names at all. I would love to see if I can find that out. But
Harrison, I was going to ask you, you're obviously a big baseball guy. I want to ask you this. What do you think the transition would be like for a guy to come down from the major leagues and coach college? What's the transition you feel like? Are you like, that's probably a little overrated, overstated. I think if you can coach baseball, you can coach baseball. But I'm interested from a guy that follows baseball 24/7, 365. What do you think that transition would be like for a guy coming from the professional level to essentially the minor leagues at the highest level in college in the SEC?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I mean, I think if it's a guy coming from the minor leagues, it's a little bit smoother and, not as big of a jump. I'm not going to say
it's developmental at that level too.
Yeah, but you also got to think like minor leagues it's a job, right? Professional baseball is a job, but minor leagues is a little bit different than, the show, but you're still dealing with like a lot of younger guys and whatnot. But if you're jumping down from like, let's say like a big league ball club in the pros, right? It's a bigger jump than, not saying jump down. It's a bigger, different type of jump to do and coach collegiate baseball because you're coaching like 18 to 21-year-olds that are still figuring their life out and everything, and also having to go to class and the academics behind it and whatnot. It's a completely different structure, but I think it's not as hard as people think because you're still treating these guys like it's a profession. We know with NIL now, it's not, the student athlete part is kind of gray. I mean, yes, they're not employees of the school, like technically whatever you want to call it, but baseball is their job. Their sport is their job.
It feels like the student athlete part, we could move the student to the back of the, it could be
you don't go to school. If you're especially at A&M, you don't go to school to play. So you don't go to A&M to play school.
Like Cardell Jones said at Ohio State, the quarterback. Yeah, I didn't go to Ohio State to play school.
Exactly. I mean, there's that, but I think you still run it like a professional program. You see a lot of guys like Max Wiener came from the pitching coach of the Mariners system. And so, I mean, he's obviously not a head coach, but I mean, he's done a fantastic job. I think you still approach it the same way. You just have to have a great support staff around you. I think that's crucial at any matter, especially if you come from pros to college. But like I said, Mike Earley's been in that program. He's been in that locker room. He knows the expectation. He knows what the guys want. He knows what the guys need. He knows where to push buttons and where not to. But like I said, the staff around him is going to be crucial. I'm curious to see when that comes out and who it is. Because I mean, it's interesting. He can't bring his staff with him because he was an assistant. So it's going to be, what relationships does he have and how strong those are to pull guys to A&M. I mean, because I think an assistant coaching job for another assistant is a very, very interesting and appealing job, versus being an assistant at a mid-major or like a smaller non-SEC school, or maybe it's an ACC, or maybe it's, out west. He's got connections to Arizona State. So, you never know who it could be, but that's going to be, like I said, crucial.
No, you're exactly right. The staff around him will be key. That'll be something to monitor. All right, Harrison, before we get out of here, we've been on for about 14 minutes of reaction here on Sunday morning. Weird time to break this news as we talked at the beginning. It's report card time, brother. You got to give me an initial reaction, letter grade, plus minus system. What are we grading Trev Albert's first hire in College Station? That is Michael Earley is the new man at Bluebell Park for Texas A&M. What are we giving the grade, man?
Yeah, Dave, with hiring Michael Earley as the head coach of Texas A&M, I'm giving it a B. I think a B is fair, but I think it's not an overreaction one way or the other. It's a B because there's room for both to grow and there's room to go down, but it's all depending upon who his staff is around him and what happens the next 2 years at A&M. I think you can't really jump to conclusions about, like the hire's good, hire's not good. Oh, it's a short-term hire, it's a long-term hire, whatever it is. It doesn't matter who you hire. It matters the results. So
I think you made a key point. I'm interested to see who he hires as a staff before I really make a big grade. I know I asked you an initial grade on it. And it's just that's what we're doing for this initial reaction. But you're right. I think staff is key. That's something to keep an eye on. Recruiting coordinator, hitting coach, pitching coach. Who does he have? No, you're right. I think you hit the hammer on the head with that.
But I mean, time will tell, and I expect that to move quickly as well, just because of the nature of how things work and head coaching hires and whatnot. And it's going to be fun to see. But I mean, I think it's a 12th man. You got to be excited because you got a head coach. It's a guy it's a guy you love. You guy that's been successful, like I said, at Arizona State and now Texas A&M with the hitters. I mean, you're looking forward to the 2025 season and getting back to Omaha and winning national championship.
All right, when we're getting that, I'm going to give it a B-. I'm fired up about next year. I think A&M is going to be good. I'm going to leave it TBD, to be determined by staff. I think you made a great point on that.
Same.
From an assistant coach, who does he go get to fill out the rest of the staff? But guys, that's it. Michael Earley, the new head man on the diamond at College Station at Texas A&M, replacing Jim Schlossnagle.
Let us know what y'all think.
Yeah, let us know what you think. Like, comment. Me and my guy Harrison here. All things. Give us the follow at SEC Unfiltered. Give us the channel on all our social platforms, guys. It's SEC all the time, 24/7, 365. As you can tell, we're getting here on a Sunday morning to discuss the Texas A&M baseball hire, guys. We appreciate you joining us, guys. You have a phenomenal rest of your Sunday.